our next panel is my favorite. It is our patient panel, one of our patient panels. And so I'd like to invite Ms. Marion Jones up. She's my neighbor, and she's also an NMOSD patient. She also just ran her first marathon in New York City a few months ago. She's also wearing TSF pink from head to toe. Incredible. Come on up, Marion. She's our moderator for this session. And then I'd like to invite up Karen, Jolanda, Rebecca, Colleen, and Jerome. Please come on up.
Hello, everybody. So we are so excited to be with you today. Just to echo some of the things that Samira shared earlier, it feels like you are joining us in our home. This is just a space that, TSF is very sacred to us. Those of us that have been diagnosed, it provides a sense of community for us. And so I really do consider myself to be sharing the stage with family. This is a group that many of them are a part of the Samira Foundation, so they volunteer as ambassadors. And then others, we have just sort of semi-stalked and put them in a WhatsApp chat with us. So we may ping them in the late hours just about questions related to our journey, but they have all been just incredible. And I'm so grateful that I get to do life with them and share this journey with them. So just so I stay on time, because I know Samira is right in the front and she doesn't mind kind of winking when I'm going over time, I'm just going to introduce myself, and then I will turn it over to our lovely panelists so they can introduce themselves as well. My name is Marion Jones. I was diagnosed with NMO in 2020, November of 2020, during the height of COVID. I live here in Boston. I've been here about 6 years with no family, so it was a very traumatic and devastating time for me. Fortunately, I have an amazing care team. I have an incredible neurologist who is going to share the stage today with other panelists. And I, right now, am on a therapeutic drug that allows me to live a very independent and strong life. I have been, February of this year, made 3 years in remission and relapse-free. Thank you. And as Samira stated, in November, I just said, in addition to walking every day with NMO, you know what? I'm going to run with NMO. And I completed my first marathon in New York City in November. Actually completed my marathon the 3rd year anniversary of the date that I was diagnosed. So great things come in threes, I will say that. And so I'm just, I'm excited to, again, introduce you to the panel, and I will just turn it over to them to share their name, their diagnosis, and then maybe you can also share with the group just how long it took to really get to that diagnosis. So I'll turn it over to you, Becca.
Hi, everyone. My name is Becca. I had my first attack of acute disseminated encephalomyelitis in 1997 when I was 4 years old. I had a lot of optic neuritis over the years, seizure in high school, just a lot going on. And I eventually, when I was 22 years old, got a diagnosis of MOG antibody disease. I now work with Dr. Levy at the neuroimmunology clinic, which has been amazing, and I am so grateful to be here today with patients, researchers, family members, and everyone who's involved in this community. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Colleen, and I'm a MOGAD patient. I started having symptoms in October of 2014, and I didn't get my official diagnosis till February of 2018. I had a lot of neuropathy symptoms first, and then most of my attacks, which have been 9 attacks since then, have all been optic neuritis. But thankfully, with my monthly oil changes, as I like to call it, I've been relapse-free for 3 years in December.
And Jolie, I'll just have to say, before you introduce yourself, you'll just have to share your story with how you got connected to the Samira Foundation and our introduction.
Sure. So I stalked Marion on IG and was just in awe of her running a marathon. So I reached out and we met here for lunch, and we've been in contact ever since. So thank you. So I, as Marion did, had my diagnosis during the height of the pandemic. I was diagnosed March 2020. My first attack was June in 2019. I was on a work trip in Madrid and didn't know what was going on. So I came back home. I started physical therapy because, doctors just thought it was, a muscle strain. And so I was diagnosed and was on steroids and did plasmapheresis, and like Marion, started a therapy that has been working for me. I have had a couple of relapses, but I'm happy on the therapy that I'm on so far, and yeah.
Hi, my name is Karen Phelan. I am double seronegative NMO, and I found out about the foundation through Sumaira, and I shared the same doctor, and so I found out about the foundation through him, and I had my first attack. It was optic neuritis. I woke up and I couldn't see, and that's alarming. And so I, made phone calls, did everything. Fortunately, I have a brother who's a neurologist. So he's just like, you need to get to the hospital, the emergency room right away. But to make a long story short, my diagnosis didn't happen quickly, like a lot of them don't. But at the same time that was happening, I was also getting diagnosed with arachnoiditis. So it was like which symptom goes with which. It was a very confusing time. It took a long time, but so that all happened in 2019, I think, and I continued to get the infusions, and I have not had a relapse in a couple of months, so that's good. I've been on prednisone, though, for so long, way too long. It's like the worst drug, but the best drug. So hopefully I'll be off of that sometime. But if not, but here I sit with all you beauties.
Hi, Hello. Hi. My name is Jerome, but you can call me Germs. That's what they call me. So I'm a double seronegative NMO patient. So my symptoms started 2015 with the numbness on my right foot at my first year of medical school back in the Philippines. I'm from the Philippines, by the way. And then I was diagnosed as MS in 2019 when I finished medical school. So I didn't only become a doctor, I also became a patient. And then I was formally diagnosed with double negative NMO last 2021. And right now I'm doing my master's in clinical investigation at Harvard Medical School. I'm doing research on double negative NMO, and my mentor is Dr. Michael Levy. Yeah.
So I just want to, I have a question, first of all, for the audience. So this will set up the question that I'll have for each of you. How many of you in the audience are newly diagnosed in terms of maybe diagnosed within the past 24 months, so 2 years? Any newly diagnosed? Okay, several newly diagnosed. So I want to ask, and then we'll just, kind of jump right into this question. What information or advice would you share to newly diagnosed in terms of your key learnings that you've had with your individual journey with your disease? So Becca, yeah, you can kick it off for us.
So I think I've had a lot of different stages of learning since I've had this for so long. I think the most important thing that have learned and that I would like to share with people newly diagnosed is that things get better. You still have bad days. You still, life is very different maybe than your healthy peers, but I have found a lot of like meaning, gratitude, just like I really think it made me who I am, and I am more empathetic, more caring because of everything I've been through. So with all the bad, I do recognize that some good comes with it, and just know that like this, I didn't get here right away. I've had this for many, many, many years. But with time, things get better.
Yeah, I was kind of going to say the same thing, but take a deep breath. Don't read the internet, although there is a lot more information out there than there was back in 2014 when I was first diagnosed, and it was you have 5 years to live, and I was like, yeah. But as we can see from here, we have a lot more than 5 years to live. So believe stuff, don't believe stuff, but there is a lot of good research out there and a lot of information. And a lot of treatments and a lot of support groups. Getting into the support groups was not the first thing I wanted to do because I just didn't want to listen to what anybody else had to say. It took me a while to get into it, but I've realized that being positive in those support groups is what kept me going and has taught me to be more positive than when I was first diagnosed. Everyone says, "Oh, you've got this disease. How bad? How bad?" It's like, I'm happy. I wake up every day and I can see. I can see my husband every day when I wake up. That to me is good, despite all the attacks I've had. There are good things that come with this, as far as having all these friends and having all these people that you've been able to meet and relate with. It has definitely helped a lot. And I said it before, and I'll say it again, get a grandchild. It'll definitely keep you going. Our youngest just turned 3 today, so.
Oh.
For me, I would say definitely advocate for yourself. So make sure you use your voice, speak to your doctor, ask questions, do your own research, and don't be afraid to push back if your doctor says something that you don't agree with. Ask, make sure you understand the therapy that you're on, how it's working, and if it's not working for you, make sure you're not afraid to voice that concern and switch to another therapy. So that's what I would say as being newly diagnosed. And then also therapy. Mental health is really important. Like I was so depressed, and you kind of mourn your old self. So you kind of have to get over that and learn to love the new self and who you're becoming with this disease, and just feel empowered to, talk about it and seek therapy. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is just don't give up. Don't give up. Ask questions. Ask so many questions. Questions about questions about questions. Read, do the research. At the same time, try not to let it consume you. You have to live your life. You have to go forward with things that, we all have things, we have responsibilities. I myself got a dog, so that was very helpful. Yeah, they're good therapy, right? So that's the most important thing I can say is to just don't quit. Just keep going. Go forward. It sounds, we all say the same thing. Really, it's about the same. Just keep going forward.
I would start by saying that to each of his own, you have your own journey. But I would say slow down. I mean, you can slow down, but you can never freeze. You have to keep going. Because with my situation, because when I got diagnosed, I was just like grappling through a lot of things. I was an intern, so I didn't really have the time. So what happened was that you have to go through that diagnosis. You have to like the only way out is to go through it, you know. Um, because at some point it will catch you. That difficult emotion, it will catch you. So you have to go through and walk through it. Um, can I just share that actually after I was diagnosed with MS, I lost my mother before I took my boards in the Philippines. So it was really a lot. So I didn't really had a chance to. That's how I that's what happened to me. There was a lot of things going on, so I didn't really had a chance to go through all those like grieve, the diagnosis and everything, and then all the difficult emotions catch me last year actually. But again, I have to keep going because I don't want to settle. So yeah, keep going.
Germs, I just want to follow up with a question. You know I was coming for you.
I know.
I just want to follow up with a question. And, basically, we talk about, support and advocating for yourself. And I certainly want to talk about, some ways to advocate. But how do you find support, aside from the healthcare system? Are there any other ways that you've found support to help you navigate your NMO journey?
In the Philippines, yeah, I have family, I have friends, I have dogs. But here, because I'm all alone, I moved here 2 years ago. I took that risk to just move alone here in Boston to do clinical research. But yeah, I think actually have a corgi right now. But yeah, I think friends and also cool. You find your niche or your people. I have a small Filipino community here, so that helps me. So yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else on the panel have just some advice for outside of the healthcare system, some ways that you cope with your NMO journey that you might want to share with others that they could, think about or explore? Becca?
Yeah. So I, most of my life, didn't have patient community. I had never met anyone else with the disease. And that was because I didn't know what I had until I was 22. But after that, and I was around like 26, 27, I was a nurse, and it became very hard to be a nurse with my vision loss and some of my symptoms. So I ended up resigning from that role and was unsure of what to do with myself and decided to start a support group. That was so helpful. I have some people in my support group who are here today, and just meeting them and really connecting so much with people who really understand. That made a huge difference. It's an online support group, and I think an in-person one would be amazing someday, but if anyone's interested, there are many through Sumaira Foundation, some of the other patient organizations, so I'm happy to share information with anyone who's curious.
Thank you. Now, Jolie, you talked about something that I think is critically important for NMO patients, for MOGAD patients. You talked about advocating for yourself. Could you speak to, just peel back the layers on that and talk about what that looks like for you individually? And then I'm going to open it up to the panel because I'd like to just hear if there are any individuals on the panel that have been a part of any advocacy workshops or any, just any endeavors that have helped support you as an advocate.
Sure. So when I was first diagnosed, the neurologist that I was with put me on rituximab, even though I was diagnosed in 2020 and had actually done research in my hospital bed and wanted to be on eculizumab. But I was newly diagnosed, and so I followed the neurologist's recommendation. And I ended up having like multiple relapses on that. That's why I say always, try and follow your gut and ask questions. And even though I was the patient and, I felt like I didn't use my voice, I should have used it more like in the beginning. And I did actually end up pushing to be on eculizumab, which I ended up, eventually getting. So that's why I say always like advocate for yourself and don't feel like what you're saying doesn't matter, because it does. And you should always ask questions, do your own research, and like I said, push back if you don't feel like the therapy that you're on is not working for you. So that's my journey with advocating for myself.
Thank you. So you peeped at me, Colleen. I was, yep, you ready?
Yeah, so I think it was my first big attack with my optic neuritis. I had gone into the hospital for just a couple of days on the IV steroids, but I was not getting any improvements. And at that point, the neurologist was like, "Well, this you got to give it time. It'll work. It'll work." It just seemed to get worse. So I was actually discharged that day. I went to my neuro-ophthalmologist. It was here up at Brigham Women's at the same day, and he said the same thing, that it's going to get better. And I just kept saying, but it's not. Why am I not allowed to get another set of treatments, get plasmapheresis, if that's what you see that works? And he just kind of looked at me, and I said, this is my eyesight. It's my eyesight that I want to keep. Why can I not get that next set of treatments? And he just kind of looked at me and goes, I don't have an answer for you. He goes, let's readmit you and let's start that. And so that point right there for me was showing that I know what I need to do for myself. And I wasn't afraid to speak up, which I always had been afraid to speak up for anything before. I was a very quiet person. But to be able to put it out that way to him and saying, why can't I have this treatment if it's available and it will help? And since then, I was always able to just get what I needed. My doctors knew, like, okay, you respond better to plasmapheresis than you do to steroids. So that had always been my treatment. But it just gave me more courage to speak up for myself and for anybody else that might need it anywhere.
Thank you for sharing that. You just made me think when you said in the past you were afraid to speak up. Now you're in this kind of new era of your life where you're feeling empowered, and you said courageous. I want to just talk about that and have you all share with the attendees. We know that being diagnosed with a rare disease is something that's very traumatic. Just by show of hands, how many of you were diagnosed and you kind of thought it was a traumatic experience? Right? But I want to also explore the other T that is a part of that journey, and that is transformative. And so I want to ask you, in what way have you as an individual been transformed by this diagnosis, and what does that look like in terms of how you have evolved into the person that you were destined to become? And Colleen, I'll start with you.
Well, like I said, I was always a quiet person, not afraid to speak up for myself or anyone else. I have definitely learned to do that. As far as how it's changed, it's made me a more positive person, despite having this disease. I am much more positive about a lot of things than I used to be, because I have to be. There's no option. For me, the only option is to stay positive. And like I said, that is a huge thing to do. And it's not easy to do, to stay positive with this disease when you're constantly having relapses and you're afraid you're going to wake up blind or not be able to move. It's a hard thing to do. But so learning to stay positive is the one thing that I definitely have learned, and I definitely advocate for other people. Is as hard as this is, you have to stay positive, because you get into that negative hole and it's just going down and down and down, and it's not worth it. There is life with this disease no matter what. So staying positive is one of the ways that I definitely feel like I've grown a lot despite having this disease, is trying to stay as positive as I can.
Thank you. Karen, what about you? Oh yes, we can applaud that. It's definitely worth applauding.
For me, I would have to say acceptance was really huge for me. Everything is a process. We go through our thought processes of, hearing about this scary diagnosis, these scary words, these big, the unknown, that you've never heard of, and then you read about it and you learn about it, and you, of course, you always go for the worst of the worst first. You have 5 years to live. You know what I mean. And so for me, for acceptance, this is what I have. This is what I have. There's absolutely nothing I can do about it, but there are things I can do about it. Does that make sense? There's really nothing. Having the acceptance allows me to move forward, to the next to the next level. So trying to stay positive that way in the puppy.
Thank you. Germs, I think I'm gonna switch gears on you. So I'll
I
switch
was gonna
gears.
answer
Oh, you want that one?
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the diagnosis really fueled me to become a clinical researcher. Because like as a doctor, I was so pissed I can't find anything about double seronegative NMO. That's why I said, okay, why not do research about it? That's actually I don't know if Dr. Levy remembers this, but when it was like January before I went to apply for the master's, I remember thanking him about doing research about NMO. And then a few months after, it's so funny because like I was the program would ask us okay, pick your mentor, and then I was looking at the neurologist, and I remember I messaged a neurologist at Mass General Brigham. I don't know who it is, and then when I saw it, oh, I messaged him, and then that's when he's gonna be my mentor. So I messaged him again. Do you want to be? I want to be a mentee of you, and I want to do research about what happened to me. And then I'm glad that he accepted it. Yeah. So I think yeah, it really fueled me to do clinical research about it. That transformed me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, that was the question that I was going to pivot. I was going to ask you about your experience in research and kind of what led you to research. So now that you've opened the door on that,
No, I can add another
yeah,
thing.
go ahead.
Yeah. It's actually really challenging and fulfilling at the same time because challenging because I remember because I was building the database for the double negative NMO. It was the first few weeks was really so hard because like I have to go back to your charts so I can read I know the story of the patients and it really like I relive the what happened to me. Every time I hear, every time I read every history of a patient that has the same disease that I am, it was really challenging. But then I'm fulfilling because I'm doing something that's gonna hopefully change the narrative of what it is to be like a double negative NMO patient. Yeah.
That's awesome. So just to echo what Germ said, he's actually studying, he's practicing,
No, I'm
and
not
is a doctor
practicing.
now, right?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
already a doctor, so I can practice medicine in the Philippines. So I'm a licensed doctor in the Philippines, but I'm doing my clinical research here, and hopefully after the masters, I could apply for neurology residency here. Yeah, so that's the whole plan. Yeah.
Thank you, Germs. Now, Becca, I just want to turn it over to you to talk about you're working in this space. What has the experience been like for you working in the space? Were you in the space prior to diagnosis? And if you were, are things different now? Do you have a different level of curiosity or passion? Just share some information with us, just that to enlighten us about your experience.
So I got very lucky in how this all happened. And so, as I said earlier, I resigned from being a nurse, started up support groups, and Dr. Levy was my physician at the time. And so he was starting up these clinical trials in MOG and asked me if I wanted to come help him. And I honestly didn't know what a clinical trial even was at that point. But I was like, sure. Since I was very little, I have known I wanted to work in some arena in helping people who have similar diseases. So this felt like really the perfect opportunity for me, and it has been. It's been really awesome to be a part of the conversations with physicians and to be able to tell them like, I don't think that's right, or that's not my experience, and in my support group, that hasn't been patients' experience. Why don't we think more about this? Like, should we look in more to this little arena that maybe we weren't thinking about? So it's really nice to have sort of some say into what we're doing and looking at, and a close relationship with a lot of these researchers and physicians. So it's been great. I feel very lucky to be in the position I'm in.
Thank you for sharing that. So I want to share something that's probably hasn't been shared on our patient days, but considering we just had this thing called the State of the Union, that anybody familiar with that? Anybody? 3 people on this side of the room. Okay. So I want to just talk about in the advocacy space, but I want to talk about what happens just in our communities. We're able to speak to our elected officials, and they are the ones that are in these seats on Capitol Hill, basically having these discussions when we're not in the room. So I had the good fortune a couple weeks ago to travel out to Capitol Hill for Rare Disease Week to speak to elected officials, our senators, our congressmen and women about policies that impact our community. So when I, just think about some advice that I would share to newly diagnosed patients is also get to know the people that are in your community in these elected positions, because you, as a constituent, you have the power to elect who sits in those seats, and they're going to be making these decisions that ultimately impact your life when you are not there on Capitol Hill. So I just want to let you know that my experience, I had an opportunity to meet Senator Ed Markey, who I happen to be a constituent living here in Massachusetts. He sits on something that I just found out existed a couple of weeks ago, it's a bipartisan rare disease caucus. So there's a bipartisan rare disease caucus on Capitol Hill. I love that some people are taking notes and writing this down. Yes, this is the group. So, do research about, who are you voting for in your community, and what caucuses are they a part of that are connected to your health and healthcare outcomes. So that was something that was very empowering for me. There are these organizations that we can be a part of as patients, where we can advocate and we can go and we can speak to people that we vote for. And so I just want to really put a plug in for all the organizations. Like Autoimmune Association, they had a fly-in last week to Capitol Hill where we were doing the same thing, knocking on the doors and having those conversations. And something very interesting happened. There is a representative, Steve Lynch, and so I'm a constituent. He was on the list. He was someone that I had to go and speak with. And you really, when you're going to, for those of you newly diagnosed, I encourage you to explore patient advocacy in these organizations where you can actually fly out to Capitol Hill as well. But it's really about sharing your story. Each of us, we're living with, this disease, but we're going to thrive with this disease. It's about more than surviving, it's about thriving. And the more you educate yourself, empower yourself, and join a community, the better you are as a thriving advocate. And so I was sharing my story with this elected official, Stephen Lynch, and he said to me, he said, I'm very passionate. It was fortunately all of the acts, the policies that we were asking that he co-sponsor, he was already co-sponsoring those policies. How do we know that? Because we did research. We went on his website before we met with him. And so I was sharing my story, and he said, healthcare and advocacy is very important to me. He said, my brother had liver cancer, and I donated 60% of my liver to my brother. And so we talked about that. And so, don't be afraid to share your story. There's so many people that have their own journeys and that have their own connections to some things that their family members are struggling with. So this is, for those that are newly diagnosed and you're saying there's so much going on, what is my next step? I would encourage you to join a community, like the Sumire Foundation, get around people who are living through this, who are thriving through this, because let me tell you something. Those of us on this stage, we're surviving, but let me tell you, we're also thriving, okay? Did you hear from this amazing group? They're doing some incredible things with their life, and so I'm going to just reserve the final 10 minutes for any questions that you might have for those that are on the panel. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Germs is actually really nice.
First of all, I want to thank the panel. It's really inspiring to hear your stories. If there was one symptom that you could address, have doctors really work on and treat, what would that symptom be? Maybe I'll ask each of you to respond.
I have one. It would be the brain fog, like the mog fog, I call it. There are times when, yeah, I'm getting a little older and you're like, oh, I can't remember that thing. And that's like, I know it's an age thing. I just can't remember it. But then there are times where I sit there and I literally am like, nothing can come out, but I know what it is. So that brain fog is really, really hard to figure out. So that would be something that I would love to see figured out a little more about.
I would say the neuropathy, the nerve pain. It's just like something that, well, for myself, live with daily. So take medicine 3 times a day. And even with the medicine, it's still kind of like there underneath. So that would be something for me. And I know, I mean, we're probably all basically on the same drugs. There haven't really been anything new that's come out. So yeah.
I think for me it's the leg weakness. Yeah, because that's I'm maybe biased because it's I have that's the main symptoms that I have. It's like the leg weakness. So the neuropathy. Yeah. So.
Becca?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is, so I'm blind, and I could go on about this forever, so I'll try not to, but I am blind in my right eye, and have partial vision in the left. And the problem is, on a visual acuity chart, they're like, you have 20/20 vision, because I couldn't see that high contrast. But when I'm in my home, if I'm on the street, if I'm walking in the dark, if I'm in an unfamiliar restaurant, it's really difficult for me to see. I'm a single 30-year-old woman. I'm trying to go on dates and do things, but it's really I don't have coping strategies for some of these things, and so I end up being inside a lot more than I would like to because I'm in the comfortable environment. So I hope to see more about these types of vision loss, where it's not something that can be fixed necessarily by glasses. It can't be fixed by these medications. The vision's permanently gone. So just ways of managing vision, that's been the biggest struggle for me lately.
Karen, do you have something?
Same thing. I'm also blind. I'm also blind in my right eye. I can't see. I never regained my vision after the first attack, and my left eye is being challenged at the same time now. But I'm always running into people because I can't see anybody. And I knocked this woman over in Walmart, and I felt so bad. And I was saying I didn't see her. I couldn't hear her. I didn't see her. And it's embarrassing. But I just have to, again, once come to the acceptance that I'm never going to be able to see out of my right eye again. Maybe I will. I don't know. But no, I can't. So.
Thank you. And I'll just add to that, just chronic nerve pain.
Yeah.
When I was started on a treatment drug and I relapsed, and after that relapse, I had just severe chronic nerve pain, the left side of my head and into my neck area, and I take Lyrica for that, and I can't take enough Lyrica to remove the pain. It's just something that's there all day, every day for the most part. It will be exacerbated at certain times of the day, so just really chronic nerve pain.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Can I just add something about as far as the vision? So I'm the same way. My right eye, I have no vision, and just central vision in my left eye. I went to low vision rehab, and they were so helpful. I use a white cane when I need to. I do it mostly when I learned to go somewhere by myself, because I was very afraid to go anywhere by myself with this. But a white cane, using the white cane when I'm somewhere by myself or in a new situation, it helped a lot. They've taught me how to prepare food at home, and they've given me more, reinforcement on how to do that correctly without hurting myself. So a low vision rehab was such a game changer for me, as far as how to function every day in the thing, because I was petrified to go to a mall, and now I will go to the mall by myself without a problem.
Thanks for sharing that. Other questions? All right, I see we have a question in the back.
Thank you. Hi, I was just wondering if anybody had any tips for the fatigue. I feel like I only have like 3 or 4 hours a day of alertness, and I can only drink so much coffee. I was wondering if anyone has found anything that helps with just exhaustion or general alertness.
I take my modafinil every day, and it is the one pill that has definitely helped a lot. I'm going to start right off with that. But also knowing when I need to rest is when I rest. Sometimes it's hard because, like you said, you only have a few hours a day that you feel like you can function. For me, I was like that. It did get better. It took some time to do that. But resting when you can, right now, for me, seems to be the thing. But like I said, my modafinil helps a lot.
Yeah, I also use medication that helps a lot, and before that I was not really able to function fully. I can share with you more after.
Germs?
So interesting, I don't actually use any medication for that. I think the deadlines keeps me awake. The deadlines of my research, so that's why. But yeah, I think I rest. I think I just rest, and my dog, he keeps me like, yeah. So that's it.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll just open it up for one more question before.
I was just wondering, how do you explain to like your friends and family with like fatigue and just explaining how you're feeling with them? I feel like I struggle with that a lot.
Girl, do we have enough time? I'll turn it over to the panel. Anyone? Jolie, how do you?
I agree. And just to clarify, she calls me Jolie, which is a family nickname, which friends. So obviously she's a friend. So my government name is Jolanda. So just in case anyone was confused. But thank you, Marion. I would say I struggle with that a lot too, in explaining fatigue to them. They think it's just regular fatigue, like they get tired, but it's a different type of fatigue. It's like you literally cannot keep your eyes open, or you're just like so tired you can't move. So I think it's hard for them to understand, and when they're tired, it's a different type of tired. And so I don't know. I just keep trying to explain, like, okay, this is different. I have a disease and my fatigue is different from your fatigue. I try and explain it. I found like, I guess the spoon analogy, where it's like, I only have so many spoons in a day, but you might have endless spoons. I have like 12. And it like, I'm using those throughout the day. And so, it's a different type of level of energy. That's how I explain it. I don't know if that made sense, but.
Great analogy. All right, and I'll just say the Samire Foundation has videos. They have lots of information. So I now sometimes will just send a link over to family members if we're having an event that's going to be where they can join us online or something like that. I usually will drop that in my sibling chat and so that they can hear the perspectives of others. Because I know when we did New York City Patient Day, I sat on a panel. I sent out the link to all my family, lots of my family members. And, now I think they have a different perspective because, they wrote me back, as the event was happening and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe, this person was living with this person was partially paralyzed. And I'm like, yeah, I was that person in 2020. And so, it's just sometimes sometimes people have to hear different perspectives and maybe hear from the voice of someone else to fully relate. But it's definitely a challenge. So I want to just thank the panelists, my family, my community for joining us. Just a round of applause for the courage to share.
These are our friends from industry who are in the room today. Their roles really range from patient advocacy to medical affairs to being science liaisons, either locally or regionally. So if you have questions about any of the therapies that they have in their pipeline or clinical trials or whatnot, we encourage you to connect with these folks today. They are all in the room. Raise your hand if you're on this slide. Great. So they'd be more than happy to speak to you, talk to you about what resources that they have in their organizations, and provide you with more information. Okay, that was fantastic. Thank you all so much for being here once again. So a couple of quick announcements before we head to lunch. Can we just advance the next slide, please?